What's between dimensions? Second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension. So what's in the gaps? What's in the space between the second and the third? Between the third and the fourth? You've wondered this. Everyone has. And the answer, most people believe, there's some kind of membrane, some barrier, some in-between zone where dimensions blur into each other. That belief is not a little wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Dimensions aren't places. They're not rooms with hallways connecting them. They're measurements, axes, directions you can point, and you can't stand between directions. That's like asking what's north of north. Meaningless. But here's the part that actually breaks your brain. Light already moves between dimensions. Right now, on your wall, your shadow is a 3D object compressed into 2D space. And the light did that translation instantly. No membrane, no barrier, just projection, collapse, done. What you think of as dimensional space is actually just how information gets translated when light touches reality. And once you understand that, dimensions stop being places. They become relationships. Let me show you. Grab your phone right now. Turn on the flashlight. Hold your hand between the light and a wall. Simple. You've done this 1,000 times. Made shadow puppets as a kid, waved at your own silhouette. But look closer. Your hand is three-dimensional. It has depth, thickness, volume. Your fingers curl in space. Your palm has a back and a front. Now look at the shadow. Flat. Completely flat. Where did the third dimension go? People say it disappeared. But that's just a label. Nothing disappeared. The information got collapsed, compressed, translated from one-dimensional language into another. And light did that translation instantly, without asking permission. The universe keeps strict books on this. Every single photon that leaves your phone hits your hand. Some get absorbed, some bounce off. The ones that pass around your hand continue to the wall. And where they don't land, darkness, a shadow, a two-dimensional record of a three-dimensional event. Here's the part that should keep you up at night. You're not looking at an absence. You're looking at dimensional translation in real time. Your shadow isn't less than your hand. It's your hand expressed in a different dimensional grammar. Same information, different language. Now tilt your hand. Watch the shadow stretch, distort, compress. You're watching the relationship between 3D and 2D change in real time. The angle of light determines how the translation happens. This is where your intuition fails. You think dimensions are stacked like floors in a building. First floor, second floor, third floor, wrong. Dimensions nest inside each other. Higher dimensions contain lower dimensions the way your hand contains its shadow, not beside, through. And light is the translator that reveals this relationship. Hold that thought. It gets stranger. Let me break something in your head. You've been taught dimensions wrong since childhood. First dimension is a line. Second dimension is a flat square. Third dimension is a cube. Fourth dimension is time, or some weird tesseract thing. That's not how dimensions work. That's not an answer. That's a label. Here's what's actually happening. A dimension is a direction of measurement. That's it. Nothing mystical. Nothing science fiction. Just a direction you can point and measure distance. Left, right. One dimension. Add up, down. Two dimensions. Add forward, backward. Three dimensions. Each new dimension doesn't create a new place. It creates a new axis of freedom. And here's where light teaches us something brutal. When light projects a 3D object onto a 2D surface, it doesn't delete information. It collapses it. Think about what just happened with your shadow. Your hand has volume, surface area, curvature, every bump and wrinkle. The shadow has none of that. But it still contains information about your hand, just encoded differently, compressed, flattened along one axis. The universe doesn't negotiate this process. Light hits matter, shadows appear, information translates, no exceptions. Now flip the script. If 3D objects project 2D shadows, what projects 3D objects? Wild. If the pattern holds, our entire three-dimensional reality could be a shadow, a projection, a collapsed version of something with more dimensions, and we wouldn't know. The same way your shadow doesn't know it's flat. The same way your shadow can't look up and see your hand. We can't look up into higher dimensions because we don't have the axis to turn our heads that direction. This isn't philosophy. This is geometry. Light reveals it every time a shadow touches a wall. Dimensions aren't stacked floors. They're nested projections. And light is the accountant that enforces every translation. Now watch what this actually implies. Victorian England. A school teacher named Edwin Abbott writes a strange little book, Flatland. It becomes one of the most important thought experiments in dimensional physics, and almost nobody read it when it came out. Here's the setup. Imagine a world that's completely flat, two-dimensional, like a sheet of paper with people living on it. These people are shapes, squares, triangles, circles. They slide around their flat world. They have houses, jobs, lives, but they can only see in one dimension. Wait, two-dimensional beings see in one dimension? Exactly. The same way three-dimensional beings see in two dimensions. Your eyes capture flat images. Your brain constructs depth. Now here's where Abbott broke everyone's mind. A sphere visits Flatland, a three-dimensional sphere. Passing through the two-dimensional world, what does the square see? First, nothing. Then a dot appears. The dot grows into a small circle. The circle expands larger, larger, maximum size. Then it shrinks smaller, smaller, back to a dot. Gone. The square is terrified, beautiful. The square witnessed a higher dimension intersecting its reality, but it could only perceive the cross-section, the slice, the shadow of the event. Sound familiar? This is what light does to us constantly. When higher dimensional events interact with our three-dimensional space, we see slices, cross-sections, projections, not the full object, never the full object. Abbott understood something profound in 1884. Dimensions don't hide beside us. They pass through us, and we only catch the shadow, the part our senses can translate. Light carries these translations. Every photon that reaches your eye is a message from dimensional interactions you cannot directly perceive. Reality doesn't issue refunds on this. You get the projection. That's it. And here's where it gets even stranger. Let's build something in your mind. You have a flashlight, normal flashlight, pointed at a wall. You get a circle of light, simple. Now imagine a flashlight in four-dimensional space, not science fiction, just geometry with one extra axis. A direction you can't point, a measurement you can't make, but mathematically real. This 4D flashlight shines through 4D space and hits a 3D wall. What's the shadow? Hold that thought. A 3D flashlight makes a 2D shadow, circle. A 4D flashlight makes a 3D shadow, sphere. A sphere that appears from nothing, grows, reaches maximum size, shrinks, vanishes, exactly like the sphere passing through Flatland. You're watching a higher dimensional object translate into lower dimensional perception. Now here's the part that should terrify you. How would you know if this was happening right now? Something appearing from nothing, growing, shrinking, disappearing. You'd call it strange, unexplainable, maybe supernatural, but it's just geometry. It's just projection. The constant is enforced. Every dimension projects into the one below it. Light carries the translation, no exceptions. Your brain can't visualize a 4D flashlight. That's fine. You can't visualize a million either, but you know it exists. Four-dimensional space doesn't need your imagination's permission. It just needs one extra axis, and its shadows would look like objects appearing and disappearing in our world. Wild. This isn't preference. This is accounting. The math balances. The projections nest. This isn't theory anymore. We already store dimensions inside dimensions. Holography. You've seen holograms, credit cards, concert tricks, Tupac at Coachella. But people say holograms are just fancy projections. That's just a label. Here's what's actually happening. A hologram is three-dimensional information encoded on a two-dimensional surface using light, only light. A laser splits into two beams. One hits the object, one hits the film directly. Where they meet, they create interference patterns, ripples. Those ripples encode depth, volume, dimension on a flat surface. Now shine light through that flat surface. The 3D image reconstructs from flatness. Think about what just happened. We collapsed three dimensions into two, then retrieved them, using light as the translator both ways. This isn't preference. This is engineering. We do this every day. Credit cards, security systems, data storage. We store dimensions inside other dimensions. Light carries the information. Light reconstructs it. This is where your intuition fails. You think dimensions are permanent, fixed. A cube is always a cube. Wrong. A cube is just information arranged in three-dimensional grammar. That same information can exist in two-dimensional grammar, different encoding, same data. Light translates between them without losing anything. The universe keeps strict books on this. Information doesn't vanish, it transforms. Dimensions don't separate, they interpenetrate. And holography proves we can already read the translations. Now let me take you somewhere cosmic, because this gets much bigger. Black holes, the universe's ultimate information problem. Something falls into a black hole, a star, a planet, you, three-dimensional objects, complex, massive, full of information. Where does that information go? For decades, physicists thought it vanished, gone, deleted. But the universe doesn't delete. Look, in the 1970s, Stephen Hawking and Jacob Bekenstein discovered something disturbing. The information doesn't fall into the black hole's volume. It gets encoded on its surface, the event horizon, a two-dimensional boundary, three-dimensional information, stored on a two-dimensional surface. Sound familiar? Exactly like a hologram. This became the holographic principle, and it broke physics wide open. Here's the brutal implication. If black holes encode 3D information on 2D surfaces, what about the rest of the universe? What if everything we experience in 3 dimensions is actually encoded on a distant 2-dimensional boundary? What if we're the projection? Quiet. This isn't science fiction. This is peer-reviewed physics, published, tested, debated at the highest levels. The math suggests our entire universe might be a holographic projection, 3-dimensional experience emerging from 2-dimensional information. Light carries every bit of this. Every photon reaching your eye is information that might originate from a flat boundary you can't see, can't touch, can't escape. The constant is enforced. Dimensions project, information translates, and light is the messenger that never lies. You think you live in 3D space. Maybe. Or maybe you're the shadow, a projection so complex it learned to ask what's projecting it. And here's where it gets even stranger. Let me reframe everything. You came here asking what's between dimensions. That question assumes dimensions are places, rooms with walls, floors with ceilings, gaps you could squeeze through if you found the right door. That belief is the mistake. Dimensions aren't places, they're relationships. And relationships don't have between. Think about it. What's between parent and child? Nothing. It's a relationship, a connection, not two rooms with a hallway. What's between hot and cold? Nothing. It's a spectrum, a measurement, not two countries with a border. What's between 2D and 3D? Nothing. They're not neighbors. They're nested. One contains the other. And light is the translator that reveals this nesting. Here's the part that changes everything. You've been looking for the gap, the secret portal, the hidden space, the mystical membrane. There is no gap. There's only projection, collapse, translation. Higher dimensions project into lower ones, like hands casting shadows, like spheres passing through Flatland, like holograms encoding depth on flat surfaces. The universe doesn't negotiate this. Every photon enforces it. Light doesn't care about your intuition. Light moves between dimensional relationships because light is how those relationships express themselves. You want to define what's between dimensions, you're looking at it. Light, the translator, the bridge that isn't a bridge, because there's no gap to bridge. Only information transforming from one-dimensional grammar to another. Dangerous idea. If there's no between, then dimensions aren't separate. They're the same reality viewed from different axes. 3D isn't above 2D. 3D is 2D with an extra measurement, and 4D is 3D with an extra measurement. Same information, different language. Light speaks all of them fluently. Do this right now. Find a corner in your room where two walls meet the floor. Look at it. You're seeing three planes intersect, three dimensions meeting at a single point. Now close one eye. Flat. The corner collapses. Depth vanishes. Three dimensions become two on your retina. Open both eyes. Depth returns. Your brain just performed dimensional translation using light, using the tiny difference between what each eye sees. That's not magic. That's geometry. That's how light teaches your brain about dimensions your eyes can't directly see. Beautiful. You're a dimensional translator. You always have been. So far we've learned there is no between dimensions. Dimensions aren't places with gaps. They're axes of measurement that nest inside each other through projection. Light translates between them. Shadows compress 3D into 2D. Holograms encode 3D on 2D surfaces. Black holes store 3D information on 2D boundaries. And our entire universe might be a projection, a 3D shadow of something higher, something we can't see directly. Only through the translations light provides. The question was wrong from the start. There's no between, only through. Now let me leave you with something you won't forget. Stand in sunlight today. Look at your shadow. Really look. That dark shape on the ground is you, translated, collapsed, expressed in a language with fewer dimensions. Your shadow doesn't know it's flat. Your shadow can't look up. Your shadow has no idea that a three-dimensional being is casting it now. What if that's us? What if we're shadows? Three-dimensional projections of something with more axes than we can point toward, more directions than we can turn our heads. What's casting us? We can't look up. We don't have the axis. But light knows. Light moves between all dimensional relationships. Light has always known. Every photon reaching your eye is a message from translations happening beyond your perception. You asked what's between dimensions. Nothing. That was always the answer. But the better question, what's projecting us? And what would happen if the light source moved? Would our entire three-dimensional reality shift, distort, stretch like your shadow at sunset? Brutal thought. We might never know, or maybe one day we'll learn to read the angle of the light and finally see the hand. Look at your shadow tomorrow. Ask yourself, what am I a shadow of? Then come back and tell me what you think.